When ancient guardians stir, the silence began at exactly 1447 Galactic Standard Time. Across 3 different sectors of the galaxy, deep space monitoring stations fell quiet one by one, their signals cutting out with surgical precision. On the monitoring station orbiting Kepler 442, a young Zilithian technician named Zora Keth9 noticed the pattern first. Zara's 4 arms moved across the control panels with practiced efficiency, her crystalline skin flickering between blue and amber as concern grew in her mind. The Zilithians were known throughout the galaxy for their analytical minds and their ability to see patterns where others saw chaos. Right now, that ability was telling her something that made her stomach turn with dread. Station Chief Marlin. She called across the bustling command center, her voice carrying the harmonic undertones that marked her species. "We have a problem. A big one." Chief Marlin, a gruff Terran with silver hair and weathered hands, looked up from his morning reports. Humans had been part of the Galactic Federation for 3 centuries now, ever since they had rebuilt their civilization after the Great Exodus. Most people had forgotten the old stories about what humanity was like before they scattered across the stars. "What kind of problem, Zora?" Marlin asked, setting down his coffee cup. The liquid inside was Altarian blend, dark and bitter, the kind that kept night shift workers alert for hours. Zara's skin shifted to a deep purple, the color that indicated serious concern among her people. 17 deep space sensors have gone dark in the last 6 minutes. But Chief, they are not random failures. Look at this. She projected a 3-dimensional map of the affected region into the air above her console. The dead sensors formed a perfect geometric pattern, each positioned at precise mathematical intervals. The pattern pointed like an arrow toward the most feared region of space in the known galaxy, the void sector. "That's impossible," muttered Dr. Yenna Trace, the station's chief scientist. She was Procyon, her pale skin marked with the geometric tattoos that showed her rank in their academic hierarchy. "Sensors don't fail in mathematical patterns. Something is deliberately taking them out." Marlin felt a chill run down his spine. He had been in space for 40 years, had seen solar storms, rogue AI fleets, and even the aftermath of the Andromedan War. But he had never seen anything like this. "Send an immediate alert to Fleet Command. Priority Alpha." "Already done, Chief," Zara replied, her arms still dancing across multiple control surfaces. But there's something else. The sensors didn't just go dark. Before they died, each one transmitted the same signal. A single pulse in an ancient frequency band that hasn't been used for thousands of years. "What kind of signal?" Dr. Trace asked, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. "It's coded in Old Turan," Zora said quietly, "the language humans used before the Exodus. The signal translates to 2 words: Guardian Protocol." The command center fell silent. Even the usual hum of the computers seemed to quiet, as if the machines themselves were holding their breath. Old Turan was a dead language, studied only by historians and archaeologists. No one had used it for active communication in over 10,000 years. Chief Marlin was the first to break the silence. "Get me Captain Thorne. Now." Within hours, the FSS Meridian had launched from the nearest fleet base. Captain Marcus Thorne stood on the bridge of his exploration vessel, watching the stars through the main viewport. Thorne was human, but not like the scattered colonists who made up most of humanity today. His family line traced back to the original Earth colonies, the ones established by humans who had stayed in the solar system longer than most. "Captain," came the voice of his first officer, Commander Jax Forthen. The Centaurian's blue skin and silver eyes reflected his species' natural skepticism. "Long-range sensors are picking up massive energy readings from the void sector. Whatever caused those blackouts, it's still there." "How massive?" Thorne asked, not taking his eyes off the stars. "Bigger than anything in our databases, sir. The energy signature is old, really old. Our computer estimates it's been dormant for at least 12,000 years. 12,000 years. That would put it right around the time of the Great Exodus, when humanity had suddenly and mysteriously abandoned Earth and scattered across the galaxy. The official record said it was due to resource depletion and political collapse, but Thorne had always suspected there was more to the story. "Set course for the void sector boundary," Thorne ordered, "but maintain safe distance. We're going to find out what's been sleeping out there." The Meridian was not alone. 3 other ships had joined their small task force: the Zilithian science vessel Harmony, the Procyon cruiser Dawn's Edge, and the massive Centaurian battleship Resolve. It was a typical Federation response to an unknown threat. Multiple species working together, each contributing their unique strengths. As they approached the boundary of the void sector, the space around them began to feel different. Even through the hull of the ship, sensitive crew members reported a strange sensation, as if the very fabric of space was holding its breath. "Captain," called Lieutenant Sarah Chen from the sensor station. She was young, barely out of the academy, but her skills with detection equipment were exceptional. "I'm reading some kind of gravitational distortion ahead. It's like space itself is folded." "Folded how?" Thorne asked. "Sir, it appears to be artificial. Something is hiding an enormous volume of space behind a dimensional fold. The technology required for this..." She paused, running calculations. "Sir, this is beyond anything any known civilization has ever achieved." Before Thorne could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. The fold was opening. Like a flower blooming in fast motion, space itself began to unfurl before them. What had appeared to be empty void was suddenly filled with shapes, massive and ancient. Ships, hundreds of them, arranged in perfect formation, as if they had been waiting for this moment for thousands of years. "My God," whispered Commander Vorthen. "How long have they been there?" The ships were unlike anything in the current galactic database. They were clearly human in design, but from an era long before the scattered colonies, before the modern Federation, before anyone now living had been born. Their hulls were dark metal, marked with symbols that predated any known human writing system. They were beautiful in their simplicity, functional in their design, and terrifying in their implications. "Incoming transmission," reported the communications officer. "It's on an old Terran frequency, but the language, it's some kind of ancient human dialect." "Put it through," Thorne ordered. The voice that filled the bridge was distinctly human, but spoke with an accent no living person had ever heard. It was the sound of old Earth, of humanity before the stars, before the scattering, before the forgetting. "Federation vessels, this is Admiral Vera Chen Prime of the Exodus Guard, commanding the Preservation Fleet Eternal Vigil. We have received the activation signal and are responding to Guardian Protocol. Request identification of current galactic threat status." The bridge fell silent. Exodus Guard. That was a name from legend, from the deepest historical archives. They were the humans who had supposedly stayed behind when Earth was evacuated, volunteers who had chosen to remain as guardians of humanity's birthworld. Captain Thorne found his voice. "Admiral Chen Prime, this is Captain Marcus Thorne of the Federation vessel Meridian. The Exodus Guard was thought to be a myth. How are you still here after 12,000 years?" "Captain Thorne," came the reply, and somehow the ancient voice carried warmth despite the vast gulf of time between them. "The Guard made a promise. We would wait, we would watch, and we would be ready when the Devourers returned. Your activation signal indicates that time has come." "Devourers?" Thorne asked, though something deep in his genetic memory stirred with recognition and fear. "The reason for the Great Exodus, Captain. The reason humanity scattered to the stars and hid among other civilizations. They consume entire star systems, turning matter into pure energy for their migration across the cosmic void. We have been waiting and preparing for their return." As if summoned by her words, space at the edge of the system began to tear. Through the rips came something that hurt to look at directly, entities of pure energy and malevolent intelligence. The Devourers had found the galaxy again. "All Federation vessels, this is Admiral Chen Prime," the ancient voice commanded with authority that crossed millennia. The eternal vigil will now implement the salvation protocol. We have waited 12,000 years for this moment. Today, humanity keeps its promise to the galaxy. The ancient human ships began to glow with energy patterns that defied known physics. After 12 millennia of waiting, the true guardians of humanity were finally going to war. Guardians of the lost world. The first devourer entity that emerged from the tear in space was the size of a small moon. Its form shifted constantly between states of matter, sometimes appearing as crackling energy, other times as liquid darkness that seemed to absorb the light of nearby stars. When it moved, reality itself seemed to bend around it, and every living being who looked upon it felt a primal terror that reached deep into their genetic memory. Captain Thorne gripped the arms of his command chair as the meridian shook from gravitational waves created by the creature's passage. All ships maintain distance and prepare for emergency jump to hyperspace, he ordered, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his chest. Negative, Captain Thorne, came Admiral Chen Prime's voice over the communication channel. The Devourers can follow hyperspace signatures. Running will only lead them to populated systems. The eternal vigil will engage. Through the view screen, Thorne watched as the ancient human ships began to transform. What had appeared to be simple metal hulls now revealed themselves as something far more sophisticated. Sections of the ships folded outward like mechanical flowers, exposing crystalline cores that pulsed with energy patterns that made the human eye water to look at directly. "Admiral, those things are massive," Commander Vorthen said into his communicator, his usual skepticism replaced by genuine concern. "Your ships are outnumbered and outgunned." "Commander," Admiral Chen Prime replied, and despite the ancient nature of her voice, Thorne could hear something that sounded almost like amusement. "You are thinking like someone from this era. We are not outnumbered. We have been multiplying for 12,000 years." As if responding to her words, space around the void sector began to shimmer. New tiers opened, but these were different from the chaotic rips the Devourers had created. These were precise, controlled, and through them came more ships. Hundreds more. Then thousands. "Dear ancestors," whispered Lieutenant Chen from the sensor station. "They're everywhere." The entire void sector was a hiding place. There are entire fleets folded into dimensional pockets throughout this region of space. The ancient human vessels that emerged were not all the same. Some were massive dreadnoughts bristling with weapons that seemed to bend light around them. Others were sleek destroyers that moved like liquid mercury through space. Still others appeared to be support vessels, their hulls covered in arrays that hummed with purposes no living human could understand. "How is this possible?" Dr. Trace's voice came over the intership communication from the Harmony. "The energy requirements alone to maintain dimensional folds for 12 millennia should be impossible." Dr. Trace, Admiral Chen Prime's voice, carried the patience of someone who had waited eons to explain. "When humanity faced extinction, we did not simply run and hide. The brightest minds of our species spent centuries preparing for this day. We learned to harvest energy from the quantum foam itself, to use the very structure of space-time as our power source. More Devourers were emerging from the cosmic tiers, each one larger and more terrifying than the last. They moved with purpose, their forms reaching out with tentacles of pure energy toward the nearest star. Where they touched, the star's light began to dim as its matter was converted to fuel for their incomprehensible hunger. "Admiral," Captain Thorne said urgently, "they're consuming the star. How do we fight something that eats suns?" "The same way our ancestors learned to fight them, Captain. Not with brute force, but with understanding. The Devourers are not truly alive as we understand life. They are patterns of energy-seeking order, consuming complexity to sustain their existence. But patterns can be disrupted." The ancient human fleet began to move in formation, their ships weaving between each other in patterns that seemed almost like a dance. As they moved, the crystalline cores on each vessel began to resonate, creating harmonics that rippled through space itself. "They're creating interference patterns," Lieutenant Chen reported, her voice filled with wonder. The resonance from their ships is disrupting the coherence of the devourer entities. The nearest devourer, the one that had been feeding on the star, suddenly convulsed. Its form began to flicker and waver, as if it were having trouble maintaining its existence. The tentacles of energy that had been draining the star withdrew, and the creature emitted something that might have been a scream if it had been capable of sound. First phase successful, Admiral Chen Prime announced. All Federation vessels, we are transmitting resonance frequency data to your ships. Your weapons cannot harm the devourers directly, but if you can amplify and broadcast these frequencies, you can help us maintain the disruption field. Captain Thorne turned to his crew. You heard the Admiral. Engineering. I want every system we have broadcasting those frequencies. Weapons, coordinate with the other Federation ships. We may not be able to hurt these things, but we can help the Guard finish what they started. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. The ancient human ships moved with precision that spoke of 12,000 years of preparation, their formations creating complex interference patterns that seemed to turn the Devourer's own energy against them. The Federation vessels, though far smaller and less powerful, added their voices to the resonance, amplifying the disruptive frequencies across the entire battlefield. But the Devourers were not helpless. As more of them poured through the cosmic tiers, they began to adapt. Their forms became more stable, more resistant to the disruption. The largest of them, a creature so vast it dwarfed entire asteroid belts, began to pulse with a counter-rhythm that threatened to cancel out the human resonance patterns. Admiral, Commander Vorthen called out, the big one is learning. It's adapting to your frequencies. We expected this, came the calm reply. Phase 2 of the Salvation Protocol is now active. All Guard vessels implement the synthesis pattern. What happened next defied every law of physics that the Federation understood. The ancient human ships began to merge, not physically, but on a level that transcended the merely material. Their consciousness, their purpose, their very essence began to combine into something greater than the sum of its parts. They're linking their AI systems, Dr. Trace reported from the Harmony, her voice filled with scientific fascination. But it's more than that. They're creating a collective intelligence that spans thousands of ships. The merged consciousness of the Exodus Guard spoke, and its voice now carried the weight of every human who had ever lived, every sacrifice that had ever been made, every promise that had ever been kept. We are the memory of Earth, it said. We are the promise made to the stars. We are the guardians who chose to stay behind so that others might live. Today, that promise is fulfilled. The ancient fleet moved as one organism. Their combined will focused on a single purpose. The resonance patterns they created became more than simple interference. They became a new form of existence, a harmony that offered the Devourers something they had never encountered before, the possibility of growth through cooperation rather than consumption. The largest Devourer paused in its feeding, its massive form rippling with confusion. For eons, it had known only hunger, only the need to consume and convert. But now it was being offered something different. The resonance patterns showed it how complexity could increase without destruction, how energy could be shared rather than stolen. One by one, the Devourers began to change. Their chaotic forms stabilized into new patterns, patterns that harmonized with the space around them rather than consuming it. The tiers in space began to close as the entities that had created them transformed from destroyers into gardeners of the cosmic void. Incredible, whispered Captain Thorne. They're not dying. They're evolving. This was always the plan. Admiral Chen Prime's individual voice returned as the Guard Collective began to separate back into distinct ships. The Devourers were not evil, just hungry and alone. 12,000 years ago, humanity realized that the only way to truly defeat them was to show them a better way to exist. As the last of the cosmic tiers sealed themselves, the transformed Devourers began to move away from the galaxy's core, their new forms trailing streams of creative energy that sparked new star formation in their wake. What had once been destroyers were now builders, Their ancient hunger transformed into a drive to nurture and create. "The threat is ended," Admiral Chen Prime announced to the Federation fleet. "The Devourers have remembered what they once were before hunger consumed them. They will trouble the galaxy no more." Captain Thorne looked out at the ancient human fleet, these guardians who had waited 12 millennia to fulfill their promise. "Admiral, what happens now? Will you return to the dimensional folds?" "No, Captain. Our long watch is over. We have done what we swore to do. Now it is time for us to join our descendants among the stars. The Exodus Guard requests permission to rejoin the Galactic Federation." Across the Federation fleet, alien and human crew members alike felt tears in their eyes. These ancient guardians had sacrificed everything, had waited in isolation for thousands of years, all to protect a galaxy that had forgotten they existed. "Permission granted, Admiral," Captain Thorne said, his voice thick with emotion. "Welcome home." As the combined fleet began its journey back to Federation space, the stars themselves seemed to shine brighter. Humanity had kept its greatest promise, and the galaxy was forever changed. The age of the scattered colonies was over. The age of the United Guardians had begun. In the weeks that followed, as the story spread across thousands of worlds, it became clear that this was more than just the end of an ancient threat. It was the beginning of a new chapter in galactic civilization, one where the wisdom of the past and the hope of the future could work together to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The Exodus Guard had returned, and with them came the reminder that some promises are worth keeping, no matter how long it takes, no matter how great the cost. Humanity had proven once again that they were more than just another species among the stars. They were the guardians who chose to stay behind, the protectors who never forgot their duty, the promise keepers who waited 12,000 years to save a galaxy that had forgotten their names. And in that moment, every human throughout the Federation felt a pride that reached back through the generations to Earth itself, to the first humans who had looked up at the stars and decided that some things were worth protecting, even at the cost of everything they held dear.